So welcome everyone. Welcome to Forced Migration and the Arts. In this session, we are focusing on refugee camps. And we've got a number of speakers who are based in different parts of the world. What we will do is I'll ask each of our speakers to introduce themselves first and talk about the work, talk about where they are, and also talk about the work that they are doing. And then we go into the substantive discussion itself. We'll start with Rewan, followed by Abril, and then Hanadi, Tesfaye, and then Ahmed.
I don't know, should I start or?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Hello, this is me, Rewan Kakil. I've been born in Kurdistan of Iraq, and since then I've been myself actually born in forced displacement because I was born in civil war in 1995 and 1996. Between this time was the civil war, and in 2016 I became a refugee, and I came to Finland as well this year. And since then, I've been making 3 photo exhibitions, and my photo exhibitions are mainly focused on refugees. My first refugee, like my first exhibition, I made from the reception center actually where I was staying, and I asked my fellow refugees what are their dreams in Finland. So then later on, actually, I made another photo exhibition because my partner is Finn, and so we start making the exhibition how's being like refugee or immigrant in relationship with a local and vice versa. And we have also interviewed other couples, international couples, and also my latest work about deportation. I have also made a photo exhibition about this, and currently I'm working in a project called Ending Time and Space. We are focusing on refugees' life and how the refugeehood ends as an experience. And the project funded by Kone Foundation, and my part in it is 18 months as full-time artist. So I'm glad to be part of it, and we continue to explore refugeehood, both from autobiographical way, like from my own journey, and also to ask other refugees in the same situation.
Thank you very much, Rewan.
Hello, everyone. This is Abril.
Hello, Abril.
Hi. This is great to be part of this. It's a great initiative, and I'm pleased to be part of it. I am a doctorate researcher in the University of Oxford, and I am also a consultant on forced displacement in East Africa. Currently, I focus only in Kenya. I have also worked in Uganda and Burundi. So I am mainly interested in the intersections of migration, gender relations, power, and agency. And it is for my PhD research for which I use creative and participatory methods. So I work with women and trans women in 2 cities, two bordering cities, and then in the capital of Mexico. So one of the cities is bordering Guatemala, the other is Mexico City, and then another one is Tijuana, which borders the US. Maybe you have heard about it. So yeah, I use photo voice mainly to work with my collaborators. We carry out group workshops, and they produce a series of photos and accompanying narratives that can allow me to explore notions of empowerment and decision making in this context. So it is about that I will be talking about more later. Great to meet you, everyone.
Thank you very much. How about you, Anad?
Hi, hello everyone. Well, so thank you for this amazing venue to let us really participate. So my name is Hanadi. I'm a Palestinian refugee born in Lebanon. So I'm a refugee, but I didn't live in a camp. But I grew and I did architecture and then urban design. And I took my thesis, I worked my thesis on Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon. And for me, when I worked on the camp, the first time I entered the camp, basically, I felt that this is where the place I belong. I mean, you spend the whole life, you know, living in a context that you're not aware of what's happening around you, but then eventually you feel that you really, this is who you are, like the accent, the food, the people, so everything about it. And then I mean, I went into practice, so I worked as a consultant in urban development project, like really huge development projects in Lebanon and the MENA region. But then after like 14 years of working on development, you know, the large scale, the private sector, and the fast pace, I thought, I mean, I want to go back to a place and space that I really liked. So I decided to pursue my academic passion and then to work again in academia. So I'm currently finishing my PhD on camps, on Palestinian camps, but this time I'm working on the built environment, on the what I call the volume of these camps. Now, for those who don't know, the camps in Lebanon have been there for 72, 73 years. So it's kind of protracted migration, displacement. And now these camps are now jungles of concrete. So they're not, as people imagine, like really tents, temporary structures. So they've been there for the third generation now. And yeah, so I'm in London now. I'm the PhD is in the Bartlett at the development planning unit. Yeah, and that's it. We're gonna tell you about it later in the discussion about how I'm doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe yeah, maybe we start, you know, with a thread from the question that you posed, Anad. Why do you do what you do? And also, how did the journey start for you, Rewan, and then Abril?
But Ahmed, I mean, Ahmed, there's still Ahmed, no?
There's still
Ahmed, yes.
Okay.
yeah. Hey, I'm here. Yeah.
Hello. Yes.
Hello. So hello everyone. My name is Ahmed Zaidan. I am a poet, artist, originally from Iraq, the city of Mosul. I worked in journalism before I came to Finland to ask for asylum to 2013, from which my journey started in artistic world. And my journey resulted in me authoring and writing, publishing this panoply of books here, which are about migrations. It's poetry about migration and homelands and how it feels to live in far or distant from your home, seeing your home being gutted by fire of wars and destruction. And also hope is there. Currently, I am working on a project like Rewan, this ending project, endings, time of refuge, time and space. The project aims to, as an artist, I'm commissioned to transform the scientific materials, the legal decisions of migration office into poetry and prose, and to generate exhibitions and workshops as well as poetry gigs. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And then so okay, so we go back to to that question about art, the place that art has in your lives, and also basically why you're doing what you're doing.
So for me, it's actually, the story starts with this, that before I become a refugee myself, I am working as freelancer with UNICEF and UNFPA and also other NGOs in Kurdistan of Iraq. And we were covering the refugees at that time during 2012-13, at that time when lots of refugees came from Syria and also elsewhere in Iraq with the result of ISIS attack. And then later on, I became refugee myself. And since then, this transmission transformed, like from there, when I'm taking photographs of refugees, and then I become one of them. So it's quite interesting, like how things can change, how stories can change. And for me, it's not just about the art that I do, it's also about own experience, about my own life, to look for a safe place. And secondly is this, that I don't know if you guys are all in Europe or not, but I based on Europe, like in Finland. And in 2016, when I arrived in Finland, there was so much of this so-called refugee crisis, and it felt quite negative to be the crisis, to be the part of those crises. And there was so much negative stories, as you can tell, at that time about refugees and so on. So I wanted to have the story of refugees to be told by the refugees themselves, instead of to be told by an organized media and so on. So I've worked towards this goal since I came here, and been showcased, as I said in the beginning, like 3 photo exhibition to be the voice of the refugees. And I think that's it. I just want to share the story through ourselves.
Thank you. Then April.
Yeah, the question is why I do what I do, right?
Yeah,
That's a big question. Yeah, I'll try. So I am based in Mexico. The creative work that I do with migrants and refugees is based here. So the context of migration and forced migration in the Americas is very different from what we see in African countries, in Middle Eastern countries, as far as I have worked there. So the figure of refugees doesn't exist per se. I think that's an important point to mention. But there are interesting comparison points between the shelters that work in a very similar way to camps here. So I just wanted to mention that because it is a very different context from where other colleagues are coming from. So why I do what I do, I focus on empowerment among women and trans women after working for a long time on gender-based violence amongst internally displaced women in Mexico, and then I compared it with Sudan. And it struck my attention to see how deep the similarities were between Sudan and Mexico. I was in Sudan during that so-called refugee crisis, and it was very interesting to see that the crisis was not happening in Europe. It was happening in the global south. It was happening here, it was happening in Sudan and in other countries. But the deep drive, in a way, that led me to work on gender and migration was my own personal life story and my family's path of forced migration, mainly to the US. So I grew up with histories of people that cross the desert or the river. There are deserts and rivers dividing Mexico and the US. So family members would do that, would go there and back. And I would grow up hearing like, wow, this guy crossed again. But at some point, it wasn't so easy to cross anymore. Migration policies started to become more and more strict, so people became stranded. I started hearing like, oh, this cousin was deported. This other cousin cannot come back anymore. So it started then. And gender-based violence is pervasive in the world, but here it is a very deep issue. So I myself have been a survivor of abuse, several family members, several friends. So it was a combination of seeing that and how the experience of migrating for women or feminized bodies is tremendously different and in many ways more dangerous, not to diminish, of course, the experience of men. So that's, some of the drivers that took me to work on this.
Thank you, Gabriel. And then we hear from Hanadi and then Ahmed.
Sure. So, I mean, it's always hard to respond to this question. So, why do we do what we do? But I think sometimes is the choices that we make during the career or during a critical point in our life that we decide that, okay, this is the passion that I want to pursue. Well, for me, it's basically started when I did my first dissertation, and it was on the camps. And as I told you earlier, is that although I didn't live in a camp in Lebanon, I always felt that there are some boundaries that I was not able to see. And those boundaries basically got dissolved in the camp somehow, but also not completely dissolved, because as a refugee, not living in a camp, so you don't fit in, neither in the, in the city, nor in the camp. There's always, this barrier that that invisible barrier that you're not able to see. So when I worked on the camp, I actually tried to map the unit, based on my training as an architect. I tried to really develop these sketches, kind of artistic in a way. But for me, it was really hard to do it. Like, I thought, oh, I must be a stupid architect, going into these camps, the spaces are so intricate, so it's really hard to map the house, the built up on top, the alleyways, the staircase. So it was really complicated. And this is where I started to really get impressed about the spaces, these really beautiful, amazing, and sometimes really not, livable. And I took this, this really interest with me, and I did now my PhD on the volume itself. I mean, the idea was always in my head, is that I want to see what's inside. Like, and how people actually are managing, to develop and create and reproduce these spaces. And this is why I'm working on sections. Like, I'm cutting through these camps, architectural sections where you cut in the building and you see what is inside. And I'm working with friends, like really friends from the camps. I work on 4 camps in Lebanon, where we together built these sections. It was really a very emotional, intellectual exercise that we did together. So I would say, I mean, it's from what I do is because I really felt in love with these spaces, I would say, or where the belonging. I found a space where I belong somehow.
Thank you. Ahmad.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and I find it is a great chance while gracing the stage to tell my story and bring my memories from the camps when I arrived in 2013. And arriving in Finland, of course, had endowed me with the entailed space to practice my artistic freedom. And since I believe that everyone has their own narratives that interact to create the border story of a certain culture on a certain time, governed by factors, environmental factors, or other factors, to determine the way that we would probably develop or evolve in the future. So I would say, like, being in Finland also is read in multiple, let's say, phases or multiple levels. Like, if we talk like these, let's say, horizontally, I would say that I had a journey in Finland, starting from that camp. Over the course of my journey and the expense of my road, I would say that it's made of different stations, and with each stations I had to stop and start another journey, or to take different course, different like different road, different track, because so the journey of the camp, when I arrived in 2013 in December, and you know, Finland is a cold country, dark in winter, so it was a desolate area in the middle of nowhere. And that fearful night, I was escorted by two police like men who escorted me to the camp, to that weird world that never resembled a prison. It wasn't a prison, of course. And never resembled also a school. So it was a mixture, a blend of school and a prison, or probably a school a prison who wanted to look like a school. Once I entered, I remember that world. I saw that in the evening, I saw, like, in that room or the lobby, everybody was gazing at me, trying to study where I come from and what is my narrative and why I'm here. So once I arrived my room, just 5 minutes later, I saw a group of guys, young people who arrived to ask me where I come from. They heard that I come from Iraq and which city I'm from Iraq. And later on, my roommate was from Afghanistan, who seemed to be a genuine part of camp's lives, as he started to give me some tips how to survive here. Like, I remember the tips were, for example, not to share, to reveal my migration story to any of my peers. Even if I trust people, I shouldn't share with them my story, my case. We call it case that time. Later I learned it's because once people share their stories, that the story might be used or crafted in other people's cases. So other asylum seekers can use the same story, and that will weaken the original story. So it was a kind of taboo not to share two things: story and the road. How did you arrive, and what road you took to get to Finland? So even people didn't ask, because it was something like the custom of that life. And one of the interesting things, which I still remember, I was taken by one of the people who work there, I think from the Red Cross, to the nearest supermarket, which was like probably 15 minutes by car. So when I was trying to fit the grocery in the fridge, so the Afghani roommate gave me very beneficial story not to try to be Middle Eastern and invite everyone every day, because this is different from my original country, and we have limited source of income, and we need to we need to share everything, but on equal like basis. Well, I think this is like, oh well, art regarding art or art. I can probably share with you something here. It's like I have downloaded here on my phone. So where are they? Yeah. So we start from, because I was surrounded by the Finnish nature, and the nature that doesn't resemble, of course, for sure, the nature of my country, Iraq. So I was just trying to draw. So it's not my art, but this was a way how to spend time there. So one of the drawing was this, if I know it's clear. It's something like pine trees, and here is another one also. Yeah, and this is me with all what I have leaving from the camp. This is when I got the residence permit after 6 months of staying in that camp, which became later a nice memory. But when I was there back then, I thought, oh my God, how long I'm going to stay here? Because I was waiting eagerly to get my residence permit and to finally live like people, because always I felt like I was barred from practicing my normal life, what I left my country for. I felt like I haven't left my country to be cramped in a refugee camp for many years because I had my objectives and my goals in the future. But yes, it was quite an interesting experience that influenced my upcoming phases of my life until now. I think whatever happens, whatever I write, it could be inspired by that experience. Well, I thank you. I guess.
Thank you. And then maybe this is a question for you who are doing academic research. You know, what are the challenges that you experience, you know, researching something that you have lived?
Well, I'm not a researcher myself. I'm an artist. I've conducted artistic research, like in my previous project. It's called Mosul Story of Hope, which is also funded from Kone Foundation. And I have, like, in my current work, of course, there are always challenges. Like, for example, to get the fund, feeling insecure sometimes when your project is about to end. And these are very, very, like, let's say, powerful challenges that always I have to be careful. I need to find a secure source of income so I can sustain my art, and I can be because art needs time, and I can't, for example, to do multiple works, and then I allocate time for arts because and I think also it's challenging because as an artist, it's very challenging in everywhere, I think, to live, to earn your bread. Yeah.
How about you, Rewan? And then from Rewan, we go to Abreu and Anad.
So the question was about difficulties that we face as
about the challenges, you know, when you are researching, writing about, making art around something that you have lived or are living, you know.
Well, I must say this. I mean, it is challenging. It's not very easy, especially in the artistic level. And at least like in West is most of the time the focus is very much on the certification, which is understandable. But many of us have started artistic journey without any certificate, any specific studies for it. But nevertheless, if in my own case, if I talk about my own cases, it has been I would say I would have been lucky because in the very beginning I started having photo exhibition and got support from other organization and NGO. But of course, those works that I have done, it was not very like it's not that I can live totally as an artist until lately after 8 years. Now it's my first time that I get like full-time support for my artistic work for 18 months. But nevertheless, even getting this is very big support because you know, it kind of also encourages me, maybe also others, that they go through this journey that if they work hard, there's payoff in the end. Like, because I have been basically in the beginning when I start doing those photo exhibition in Finland, I really didn't have anything. I just had one camera, and in the you know, we are living in Finland, the country of million of sauna. So in the reception center there was one sauna. So I talk with the office of the reception center if they can lend me this sauna to do some photo exhibition, like taking the photos. And I asked one of the worker, I still remember, if he can lend me some lights. So he took construction light of his home, you know, this kind of projectors and stuff. And I used this, and then I used very thin layer of paper to make it soft light. So within the sauna, my first photo exhibition, with very basic tools born, and later on it ended up in a book cover about refugees in Finland, which is edited by Evelina Dutunen. So yeah, I mean, if there's like if you have the will, then everything is possible, I think. But yeah, of course, not easy like straight away. But I think if you continue, it is possible. At least that's my journey.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, but some of the challenges that I have faced doing this research is, well, I'm an insider and outsider at the same time. Um, I am not a displaced person, but I am a Latin American person. And that was actually one of the reasons why in the middle of my PhD journey, I decided to change locations. I was going to do this research in Kenya. I had contacts there. I was able to do it. I got into a PhD through that project, but then I decided no, it doesn't make sense to do it there. I will connect much better in Latin America in my language, talking to people that look like me. And in Kenya, the barriers were several, including languages. Um, so yeah, it is an asset to be sort of an insider in the Latin American sense. But then I am not a displaced person, as I said, and I work with other Latin Americans who have been displaced in Mexico. Um, but the advantage in other ways is that I have been a migrant in other European countries, in the US, in Canada, so I can relate in that ways. Um, an important challenge that I face, and that is as a woman, is that working in dangerous bordering towns is of course a big challenge. Men, of course, need to also take care of themselves, because as I mentioned, female bodies are at greater risk of being abused. Going into impoverished areas where normally asylum seekers and other migrants established uh, is a risk. So yeah, those are some of the main challenges when conducting exhibitions, participatory photography exhibitions. I think the challenges are more ethical. I normally try to engage at least one of the women or trans women that I have collaborated with to attend the exhibition, to share some of their experiences, to talk about it. But that is not always possible. So I have user rights for the images that women created. And that is, yeah, it's helpful from a research perspective, but it can be uncomfortable as I am trying to stay away from the extractivist methodologies, and that's why I'm trying to use participatory methods. But there is still an element of extraction. So yeah, when I use their photos, I am normally questioning myself, what am I doing? I didn't create these photos, right? I asked for their permission, they know about it. So yeah, those are just a couple of challenges I can share. Thanks.
Thank you.
In my case, I would say there's like a blurred line between art and disciplinary products. So because we were producing these, architectural sections, but somehow they are artistic, the partners or the ladies that were collaborating together, they were a bit lost. So what are you doing? Are these really technical drawings, or are these like kind of impressions that we're making? So they were kind of a mixture between, impression, because we're not measuring. It's not, engineering or architectural metric drawings. It's more of an impression of how the space looks. So this was one thing. Another thing was the reluctancy, so because I wasn't sure of what I was doing, I was kind of experimenting. It's hard, when you show this kind of hesitation or trial and error what we're doing. So there's no confidence in what I was trying to convey. So the ladies were a bit, skeptical about where we're heading. This is what we want, and they're kind of reluctant. And I was always trying to kind of mix, you know, providing or creating a mixture between art and science, saying, okay, this is something that we all know how to do as, you know, architects or graphic expert or engineers, but it's beyond that. It's kind of putting our souls in the drawings to make them really express the space. Another thing is similarly to Abril, basically, is the ethics and the extractionist approach. Is that okay? So, okay, we work together, but then I'm taking drawings, you know, I'm sharing the work, but again, there's no giving back, which I tried to avoid by really caring for these ladies. Like, it's kind of really long-term relationships that I try to maintain with them. So we're always talking. I always try to support the best I can, and you know, always try to engage them in other activities. One critical thing that came up really recently is the violence that we may encounter that blocks everything that we're doing. So in one of the camps in south of Lebanon, there was like huge, really armed conflict in one of the camps. And I know that I know the parents of one of my partners, they actually got shot in the conflict. So I tried, you know, when you try to really to talk to people and to see if anything is going well and to tell them, okay, we can express this, you know, it hinders everything, you know. Even if I try to tell her, her name is Hiba, is that okay, if you're afraid, if you're angry, you can express this, you know, through art, or you write, you draw. I told her, let's do a blog just to express, you know, the kind of feelings that she had. But it's sad because I think violence blocks, and momentarily at least, it blocks everything. It blocks all the creativity, innovation, or even artistic skills that someone might have and doesn't know how to express it. So yes, I would say these are the main challenges in doing this work.
And then thinking about art itself and also the settings that you are working in. What can you tell me about what is happening there with, you know, the art and also the settings?
You are talking about the setting of where we are, the environmental situation, or yeah. So, well, generally, I think you guys are all relate to this, that globally in the situation of the world, I feel like there's a shift in political situation. It gets to very populist right-wing parties, and there's so much negativity connected to the refugees and refugees' life. And that, I think, somehow affect the mentality in every way. You know, because in the end of the day, I'm still a refugee. I haven't got citizenship. My residency is still in, like, I have residency, so they can remove it if they want to. And these governments in Finland, for example, became very like right wing in a way that they are like anti-immigrant immigration policies and so on, and they try to make it harder for refugee backgrounded people and so on, at least from the process. So I mean, the situation is this, and as a refugee, at the same time, you feel like, at least like for me, I feel like I have so much responsibility that I have to work as an artist and share the stories of these refugees. But at the same time, you know, there's this sense, this feeling. I don't know, it's very hard to describe it in words, but the very negative kind of feeling is there. Like you can feel it in the sky somehow, in the air you can feel it. This situation. But yeah, I think this is one of the difficulty in the environment of political situation in Europe in general. for me at least, like for my artists.
So yeah, carry on.
Oh,
Carry
sorry,
on.
go ahead.
Carry on.
Thanks. So the question is on like what the challenges are concerning like art in the context of displacement, or could you repeat the question?
Something like that. You know, what is happening around art and forced migration in the settings that you are concentrating on?
Oh, right. Thanks. Well, I worked in like at the entry point of the so-called American dream, which is Mexico. Mexico is dividing Latin America and the US and Canada. So I worked at the entry point bordering Guatemala, then Mexico City, and then at the exit point or one exit point bordering the US. So in each of these settings, art expressions vary. So at the southern border, the situation is very precarious. So most organizations are focused on providing humanitarian assistance solely. And unfortunately, the government is rather focused on blocking migrants and refugees there. So the strategy has been to use Mexico as an external border of the USA. So especially after the pandemic, very restrictive migration policies have been implemented, and that has resulted in more and more migrants becoming stranded in Mexico. They don't want to stay in Mexico. Mexico is dangerous. It's also impoverished, so they don't want to stay here, but they end up staying here. So that is the entry point of many migrants crossing from Central and South America on foot. So art expressions are limited, but especially in shelters that support LGBTQI plus peoples, art expressions have a bigger space. I actually managed to do photo voice workshops collaborating with such organizations. So they were very interested in using art as a means to also work on trauma issues. So it was interesting to hear from Hanadi when like women that you worked with face violence, they somehow get blocked. But in my case, working here, the photo voice workshops were very helpful for them to, in some ways, to up to a point, process traumatic experiences. I am a trained psychologist as well, so that was very helpful. That was in the south. In Mexico City, it's a vibrant city, but it's very big and it's expensive. So there is art, there are lots of opportunities, but one needs to pay transportation. And when you are focused on getting out of this country or getting documented would allow you to get the closest to the US, I think it's less likely that people would engage in artistic opportunities. But the migrants or refugees that have settled in Mexico City definitely engage with those, and it is through a strong civil society organization structure working with and for refugees and migrants that they get access to artistic opportunities. So there are opportunities there. In Tijuana, that is a very artistic city, and I wasn't expecting that. So I worked with 3 organizations there. They valued photo voice very dearly. They all highlighted the importance that art have to support refugees and migrants, and not only to support them deal with mental challenges, but to use the technique as a platform for them to use and express their voices and reach decision makers. So it is in Tijuana where there are some potential exhibitions coming up. So yeah, so you see the landscape differs in every location, even in the same country.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I think like first, like I consider art is the aesthetic part of destruction, and I deem art is a genuine way to convey the concealed part of any story. The concealed part, which is stashed in beyond people's egos. And I think like when as a writer, as a poet, I always found like when people in the West or people what I have encountered are so far governed, controlled by media and what's the right wave and the mainstream media. So like, for example, 5 years ago when the refugee crisis was still going on, I found more audience, more listeners, more people who wanted to know who we are and why we are here, what narratives do we have. But compared to now, when the mainstream media put the focus on different issues in the world, so refugee poems, I would say, it started to become something overwhelming, something like something from the past, which is very sad. And I feel it's still challenging to tell the world or the audience that still there are still people who are taking rubber boats and trying to find a safe refuge around the globe. There are still people in Syria who are still refugees, in Iraq, in Lebanon, all over the globe. And but there are still people who are dying in the Sahara Desert, in Libya, in other parts of the Middle East also. So, but here, like I found like now there is different focus, and I need to also to work with that, because I need to also to find the humanitarian aspect in every topic that media brings. And I feel like we have a lot of things to share, and a lot of like similarities and crossroads between being a refugee or being somewhat different issues or different problems of that's happening in the world. Like lately, I performed some like in the campus, and I found people not interested in refugee poems, and no one was interested even to ask questions afterwards. And I found like this is ultimately or for sure the wrong venue to perform these poems. So I think like there are many challenges, and also we need to adapt and to find a way, as we are human beings made of 50-70% of water, and water always tries to find a way to the right directions. So yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
How about you, Hanan?
I agree on what Ahmed is saying, is that the biggest challenge is how basically to make people to really express, you know, their artistic skills the best way they can, and to enable them. And to do this, there are a lot of challenges. And I was reading a comment from Karen here, is that yes, I mean, safety is an issue, that the environment will have to be safe, but safety comes with different levels. There is first, you know, the physical safety, that they're not going to be killed. Yes, there's no violence happening, true. But then there is me as an outsider. Although I'm Palestinian and I speak with Palestinian accent, and if I want, I can, I mean, I speak with both accents, Lebanese and Palestinian, but I'm always an outsider, and I'm always perceived that, okay, you're coming into the camp, but you're leaving afterward, and nobody knows what are you going to do afterward. Or, you know, there is kind of this perception of the other about, you know, about outsiders. So they have to feel safe and trust. Yes, I mean, building trust also is another level of deepening relationships. To make this collaboration happen and to express it. Now, one other thing as a challenge is, and I personally encountered it, is how you basically you are able to express your transformation as well, because, you know, coming in and out and enduring all these stories, and, you know, sometimes dramatic stories, and sometimes it affects you. Whatever you do, it affects you, and it changed the person. It changed me a lot. And the way I've done it is that I started to to draw characters, like inventing characters. Like every period of my life that I've, I felt that I had a major transformation, I started to draw these characters. And I call them the female individuality of refugeehood, basically. It's kind of, taking me from childhood into adolescence and then motherhood, and then, moving to another country. So it was really like a long journey. But when you see it, it makes you, it definitely changes the way you perceive the world. Now, if we can do this in the camps with people, not to monetize art, of course, money is important. I'm not denying it. It's, it's we need to live, we need to spend, but art has different or another value that has to be there is that once you're expressing yourself in an artistic way, it's kind of healing as well. So this is where I was, these were my challenges while doing the work in the camp. So that I was telling my partners, okay, we're not going to change the world, because there's always the so what. Okay, so we're doing this, they're perfect, nice, okay, exhibitions, perfect, so what? But the situation remains the same for camps. So what is the impact then? So this was the, the most difficult question that I still have to deal with it, and I'm still dealing with it, but yeah.
I'll come back to with a question on art in refugee camps. But before I do, I think there's a question that I didn't ask at the very beginning, which is, and this is for all of you, what does art mean to you? And what do you think art can do with or about people with experiences of forced displacement?
Shall I start? Yeah, I think what makes art different from the other thing or other science is this, that art is always have the ability to connect with everyone regardless of their academic backgrounds. While there is so much work on refugee or forced migration and so on, but most of those works are very academic works, and a person with some background of academia can understand. While art can connect with people. I have found so many times in so many exhibition, I find people crying with my artistic work while just watching a picture, just a refugee telling their story. So I think in the biological perspective, we cannot get away from this, that we are a visual being, and we have the senses, and these things that kind of happen with the senses are much more affected in humans, and especially about human stories. We have emotion, we have sympathy, and so on. So I think this is the very important aspect of art that can really speak to the emotion and to the mind as well at the same time. I mean, one person can read tens of articles, but still those articles are more or less like they don't have this deep emotional touch with the humans. So yeah, I think that's the important side of the art, and that's what I have been experiencing, and why I do it is also, I think one of you also mentioned this, that this is very therapeutic. I mean, I could have very difficulties in within my own stories, that I feel I am alone. But once I am putting this into a picture and I share it with the people, I am not alone anymore, because the person is relate to the art and understand the art, therefore relate to me and my story and my vision. It's true I'm just behind the camera taking some photos, but nevertheless it's still my vision, how I see the world. And if one understand this, then we can get connected better, and therefore to have better understanding and compassion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I think do you want to go ahead, Agman?
Yeah, you can start.
Yeah.
You-
Yeah, I think I agree that I like what Rowan said. I see art as a language, as a means for expression, right? So, yeah, along the lines of Rewan, it's a means to connect. In the context of forced migration, I think it's a very powerful tool precisely to connect with others. When I was developing my research proposal for the PhD, I was interested in empowerment, like for a long, long time. But I thought, like, how am I going to talk about the empowerment with them? Like, I never use the word empowerment, right? Like, I don't use it. I explore it through art, through participatory photography, through dance as well, and through some drawings. So I think it is a means to get to an end, and it is very powerful for women to realize the power they do have, the power no one has taken, and the agency that they can expand, which is empowerment. So for me in my research, using photography has been a way to connect with women, even like with women who don't speak Spanish as a first language, with Haitian women, for instance, who have very different cultural practices compared to Central South and South America. It has also been very powerful for me, as Hanadi has said. I also do photo voice with women. I also share my own photos, my own thoughts, and it changes me. So sharing that vulnerability through art is also very powerful. I wanted to share a short anecdote that portrays the power of art when working in displacement contexts. So I dance. I'm a dancer and I teach dance. So I was sharing a workshop for women, migrant and refugee women in Mexico City. And I noticed they didn't really feel like dancing that type of dance I was sharing. So I asked them, well, why don't you teach me how to dance? And it became a party. It became a multicultural Latin American party. In the end, no one is a trained dancer, right? No one was a trained dancer. But that language of Latin American music, of feeling valued by their traditions, their movements, their bodies, in a safe space where we were only women, a man just came in and everyone stopped dancing, because it was very sensual movement. So that's very important, the gender element always there. But in such safe space with these cultural pointers, with the music, it became a very beautiful experience that banded us together, and many of them later on took part of my research project.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, art, poetry. Well, poetry and art, and it's a genuine part of me, and I deem it as the visible extension and part of my soul, the crystal realm to which I refuge and resort when I ever need to feel safe. It's like when always I feel like art is my strong part, is that art is my solitude in which I can evolve and explore and travel, take journeys to distant parts of myself that I can never reach by all readings, by all sports, by everything, by all like self-development techniques, except by art. I think like it's endowment that we artists should respect. And I think it should be appreciated also by the others, because when people are revealing their arts, the crystal of their arts to the others, that means that they are exposing such a genuine, authentic part of them. Art, well, I wrote a lot about art and what art means, but now we talk about another level. art is a beautiful way to build bridges between nations. It's the shortest way that brings people together. With art, like all differences, all difficulties, all obstacles fade away. With art, we are unified, fused in the flame of humanity, that we belong to the same system, to the same womb, which is the womb of humanity. Because art exceeds all boundaries of stereotype. Art exceeds all boundaries of what makes us today different, with our skins, with our languages, with our cultures, with our heritage and legacy. So with art, all these differences will be fused in that, I would say, jar of, let's say, of art. And then it would turn to be like a cascade of colors that will always make our life better by focusing on our differences. And I mean, like, utilizing our differences and feeling proud. Where do we come from? Without, like, for example, it's like also important to emphasize this. We don't deny our heritage. Always we bring our heritage and we transform it into arts. We transform it into arts and cast it over people. And with these different heritages from different cultures, then I think with art, we are able to come up with something really beneficial for the world. But also art has we say, like, has a blade, so it's also can be used in manipulating people, in separating or casting hate. And so we have to be careful. I think we should, as artists, also work to stop any typhoons of hate in case it happens. So yeah. Well, I can talk about art until morning, so please stop me. It's
Thank you. Thank you. And Hanadi.
Well, for me, art is basically, it's a kind of depiction of reality of the self, in the sense that, you know, whomever producing something artistic is basically their perception to the world in a piece of, I don't know, in a piece of drawing or a poem or an act or a dance. So it's basically a manifestation of the self, of the personality, and you're revealing part of your personality and sharing your art to others. For me, also, it's extreme feelings, in the sense, if I'm too sad or too happy, I will definitely draw something. So it's kind of extreme state of being on both sides. And I agree with everyone. It's beyond language because it unifies everyone. It's beyond academia as well, the jargon of academia. And yes, it's, I mean, it has, like you've said a lot about it, but this is for me, it's the joy of expression, I would say.
Thank you very much. And then I don't know, for those who are listening, do any of you have any questions? If you've got questions, you know, you can unmute yourself and just ask your question. Or it doesn't even have to be a question, it can be a comment. Is there something that you would like to say or add to what has been said? What are your thoughts? We're really, really keen to hear from you. And while people are thinking, I come back to you, our speakers. What can art do around questions to do with refugees, questions to do with issues around forced migration? What do you think art can do? And is it doing those things?
Somebody else can start because you are all lucky behind me because you get some space time to think and then make up your mind, but I am just everything comes right to me. So somebody start this time to think a little bit.
Well, I
Yeah.
can start here. So if it's possible, fine
Yeah,
by.
sure.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, I think art is as important practicing of human beings. Now, not so it is still an effective and influential tool to bring the other dimension of the story, the ball, or the show that hey, because we are in fight sometimes with media, and especially like we back in 2015 when we had the refugee crisis, which is called a crisis by media, and when certain media showed that you have these Middle Easterns are going to take over Europe, influx of refugees. We are talking about like several thousands of people that arrived in Finland and what. So here, when media implanted fears in people, and fears it's the worst thing you can implant in any society. So here, as an artist, that people started to be numbed. That even if you say there are 50 people who were killed while they were trying to get to Europe, people they turn to be numbers. So as artists here, it's our role to stand and to show them, hey, it's not about like people were killed in the Middle East or somewhere in Africa. Or here we tell the story. We bring the narratives of people, what it feels to leave your country behind, to be on the boat, lurching boat in the middle of uncertainty, going to uncertainty. You don't know what will happen. So we are, as an artist, we bring that story from the inside, bring it to people, because we need to be honest with ourselves and to be honest with our host countries. These countries need us to tell them the full image, because as the world is a connected network, what happened in Syria would affect what happened in Mosul, for example, 2015 affected all the world. Like it resulted refugee crisis, and then now we have war in Ukraine. So, and the war, nobody summarized that the war will be very close. And now the fire, let's say, is at our border. So as artists, we need to show that, hey, the world is connected. So we give you the future forecast. If you don't react in that way, or if you don't do this, if you don't feel that the world is connected and work based on that, so you are going to suffer like us. When we suffered in the 90s, we never thought that we're going to be refugees, we're going to have certain wars. When we saw the Palestinian war, and we were thinking like we were distant, but we didn't react. And then the wave of fire, the inferno was raising our countries, and then it comes like this. So it's a flood, yeah.
Thank you, Ahmad. I think we'll go reverse order. Ahmad, Hanadi, Abril, and we finish with Rewan.
For me, I mean, well, for refugees, talking about myself and my partners, it basically, the art itself dissolves the boundaries, So as an artist, you're an artist, so you're not only a refugee, so it puts you on a map of artists. It's like global map without, the boundaries of being a refugee, living in a camp, outside a camp, displaced. So all these adjectives are dissolved for a refugee who is able to really display the work, in an international setting. I mean, when I displayed my pictures or my drawings in Sheffield. It was, for me, it was the first time I do it, and it was really kind of I would say fulfilling on one side, because for the first time I didn't feel I had zero embarrassment, I had zero hesitation. It was really honest, displaying in an exhibition, so there are no boundaries anymore. Now, for my partners who are actually living, in camps in Lebanon in the conflict, whenever I share with them, where I display the when I present my research, I always share with them, the outcomes, the feedback. They're really happy and glad to see, their names and because I always display their pictures, the photos of them, their work, what they do, and how they collaborated with me. So it gives them recognition somehow also, like being recognized, and as artists. And for me, they're innovators, which is the kind of like fulfilling, the adjective I always used to like to use, is that the fulfillment that we feel whenever we share our work. So eventually it's empowering, yes, but it has definitely a wider impact, which I don't know what it is at the moment.
Thank you. And then Abril.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I think art has a large impact depending on how we use it, with which platforms, depending on who the audience is. I think participatory projects that use creative methodologies can be used in international development contexts. I am trying to use it in the context of Kenya, where I work as a consultant. And there is large interest from international organizations in using these methodologies to inform policies and programs. So I think, like, I'm glad to hear that the ears are becoming open to other forms of knowledge production that go beyond quantitative methods and surveys that transform stories into numbers. So I think in my case, now coming back to Mexico, the photography exhibitions that I have managed to make have resulted in, at the very minimum, connections across migrants, but also interest from donors in investing to support and improve the living conditions of refugees and migrants here. There is very little awareness around forced displacement in Mexico. I think the main stories around migration related to Mexico is like how Mexicans migrate to the US, but very little is known about, well, there are many migrants also here and they are not having a good time. So I think using art to talk about the stories of these people and use them in the right places can have a great impact to improve lives.
Thank you.
Thanks for all of you that you gave me this opportunity to think. Yeah, your question is very deep one, and this is actually, I want to be 100% honest with all of you. Is this that for me as a refugee artist, and for my aim was to share the story of refugees, I have more or less became disappointed, to be honest, to the fact that even though art is great, it's a language communication. It's like an international language that aim to communicate beyond the boundaries of language and culture and so on and so forth. But still, there should be audience for it. If people are not interested about what's the topic of your art, what's the subject of your art, there's no audience for you. And this is unfortunately what I have felt in the past few years. In the beginning, I just give this example. I think it was 2018 or 17 when I participated in my first photo exhibition in Finland in Refugee Day. And after all these years, this year we had it, the World Refugee Day. We had some exhibition. I could see the same faces, actually even less people this time that than few years back. And year after year, I feel like just the people are coming there that they have something to with the topic, like it's no longer so widely available for like people are not so much interested about the refugee topics so much. But nevertheless, I think then again, as an artist or as a writer, creative maker, creators, we have responsibility because we shouldn't think only of today. It's a historical responsibility. I cannot stress enough on this because for me, when I'm thinking about it, like a picture that I take today is a moment that I save for 1,000 years. So this picture that I'm taking today, the story that I'm telling today, it goes beyond me, beyond my body, beyond my existence. Because one day I will die, but probably my work will stay. And this is a historical moment for us to tell our stories. And we shouldn't just think of audience or think of our time, because your question was also this, does it do it? So the answer for it, what we what I wish for to do, I think it doesn't do that. But nevertheless, I think I'm doing it also for future. I'm doing it also for my own story that is part of me, refugeehood. It's part of my life, so I have to stay with this, stay with in touch with this part of myself and also other refugees that are in similar situation. So I think it's historical responsibility to do what we have to do.
Hmm. So we'll look at, I think we've got, is it a question or a comment from Evelina? Who says, thank you very much. Thank you so much. This has been super interesting. I'm sorry I cannot speak, but I would be interested in knowing if artists with a refugee background and or artists working on themes of forced migration have some global or regional networks. Or perhaps annual events, any recommendations? I don't know, what are your thoughts? Are there any, where you are there any networks where artists with lived experience of forced migration or refugee artists can exhibit work, connect with other artists?
Well, I think at this, like for me, I'm just like based in Finland, more or less, and I think my artistic work are also pretty much focused on Finland. But yeah, and here in Finland, I have to mention this that Migration Institute of Finland, they have been very helpful. They are doing studies and research in their research center about migration, uh, especially migration of Finnish that they have went to USA. But lately with the refugees and stuff, there's also this factor that they also focus on this. So they have really made a platform for us, for me and Ahmad as well. I think he's agree with this, that we have been able to share our stories with combining with their research. And yeah, in Finland also Kone Foundation is a very helpful foundation. Yearly they are like uh, supporting hundreds of research and artists in the country, and there are many times actually the project are related to refugees or forced migration. But internationally, I don't have so much to offer, I think.
So what I will do is I will take that question and oh, sorry, after you, Anand.
No, I've pasted 2 links for the to respond to Evelina. One is the Migration Matters Festival. It's an annual festival where I exhibited my drawings. They actually invite artists here in the UK to share their work. It could be drawings, photos, even play or dance. So it's everything. And the other one is an award basically. It's an I did not submit anything, but I was planning to, but then I didn't have the time.
So what I'll do is I'll ask my penultimate question, since there are no more questions from people who are listening in. My penultimate question is also linked to the question that Evelyn asked. In your view, what is missing around forced migration in the arts? And like what is not happening, and what should be happening, and how do we get it to happen, in your view?
Mm.
And this is for all of you.
Yeah, I think we are all living in very different environment and very different background, but I'm talking more based on Finland and in Europe. So one thing that I have been feeling, me myself going through this situation, like living in reception center or camp and being here for 8 years, is this that I think personally, I think this that when a person becomes a refugee, first thing that happens is this that you leave home. So there's a separation between some very safe place, so-called home, and it's no longer there, this home. So it's really makes the identity foundation shakes, I would say, especially for us that we go to totally different culture. So I mean, you have traumatic events in your home country, then you have traumatic events on the way to get out to get to refuge, and then you have cultural shock and also another event when you are facing your situation as a refugee. I maybe I will speak too much of, but it's very. I have so much like 2 points and about this. For instance, like one of the things is that living in reception center, it's very draining time. I've was even the lucky ones because I came with relocation program, but still I waited for 6 months to get my answer, and many people are there for years and they cannot do work, they cannot do anything, they just have to wait for their answer. This is like mentally very draining situation, and this is something I think there should be really better planning for this. Another thing is this that the so-called integration program, which is in most of the European countries are available. This integration program, they are like very strictly focused on the refugees, and most of the time is related to this how to make those refugees into workers, like more focus on this, like to learn some basic language and to find them some school to learn some profession and make them workers. I mean, as I said in the beginning, those refugees that came through this way, they have really identity problems, many of them, like they don't know what to make out of their stories. And first thing I think it should be there should be very much a psychotherapy and mental health specialist to take care about those things. And another thing is this, that about the integration, it shouldn't be only about the refugees, that they have to integrate to the society. Integration should be from both ways, from the local as well as from refugees, because no matter how well the refugee is integrated to the society, but if they go into the society and the society is not ready to accept them, then all the integration goes to zero. You have done nothing. So I think the focus, it should be really this, that integration from both sides. Also, the local should be get used to it, that they are no longer just one race, they are no longer just one nation, and this nation state identity is very, very damaging for folks displaced or refugee background. I think I have much more points, but that I give some space for the others to say what they want to say as well.
Thank you, Rewan. Who wants to go next?
I mean, I would go to continue, and does Karen want to say something?
We hear from you, and then we hear from Karen.
Okay,
and,
sure.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's the celebration of work. You know, I'm for me, I would never do what I've done if I was in Lebanon. So when I moved in here, and you see the venues, and how much art is celebrated, you definitely feel the urge that if you have this, you know, this talent, you would like to express it and share it with everyone. Um, Also in Lebanon, there are many artistic venues, very nice and very culturally rich artistic venues, but they're really, really restricted on certain groups of people. And we're talking here about, you know, the elite in terms of educated slash, you know, certain income level. So there are kind of boundaries, you know, for the refugees to display their work in such venues. So you still feel these boundaries are there in the locale, I mean. So it's always from the outside, you know, from the international or from other place that actually the work is displayed, recognized, and appreciated. So for me, this is really an important impediment to really celebrate the work of refugees and put them on the map.
Thank you. We hear from Karen, and then April and
Okay.
Ahmed.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really agree with Rewan as far as integrating the people who live in a region are the people in the region, no matter where they come from. And especially in the US, we're a nation of immigrants, migrants, and have been since the beginning of our country. So the stories need to be both ways. They need to be, what is this nation that you find yourself in? What do they really need? Why would they need you there? And certainly arts are always welcome from really any part of the world, in any place I've ever lived anyway. So, you know, as ambassadors for the creativity and even resilience, for a nation to have resilience for problems and issues. There are ways that you know of to solve housing issues and urban center communication issues, and you know, so many issues that every society has, and especially in Europe and in the US, the issue of labor is important, because you have to have educated and creative people to solve labor problems, whether they're on a farm or they're in a city. So that kind of sharing of identity as part of a regional group of people, I think is really important. And Hanadi was speaking, I was thinking of one of the first pieces of art I ever bought was a very interesting young man from Mexico who was working as a waiter in a restaurant in Long Beach. And I think I bought his first piece he ever sold in the US when he came here. But now he is actually one of the few artists I know that's actually supporting themselves and expanding their artwork and their mediums, the different mediums. He's making films, he's doing all kind of different things with his artwork, and becoming pretty well known in Southern California and beyond, hopefully back in Mexico too, and has shown stuff at the Sorbonne, and internationally has contributed to international art exhibits too. So I'm just a regular person, you know, I'm nobody special, but artists have always spoken to me, and they do speak to many, many people and can contribute to the heart of any city, small or large, to have an arts community or an arts district where people can share art. Something maybe many towns would appreciate your, you know, taking part in that, that kind of regional development. But you need to hear what their problems are. What are your solutions to their problems and their issues? So that kind of back and forth, really important.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. And then Abril and Ahmad.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a large, it's a wide topic. I think that one of the challenges, yeah, it depends, of course, in the context where you are. Different challenges are faced in global south, northern, global north, and countries. But when I compare my own experience dancing in African countries, in Latin America, compared to European, is the value and the possibility of making a living out of it. I think what's missing is the income one can generate through it. I think it's very challenging to be an artist, and it's double challenging to be a refugee artist and to generate new networks and to enter it. It is already hard enough when you are doing it in your home country, but then to move to a new one. So I think structures that can enable migrants and refugees to connect and to generate income through art, it's key. It's key around what's missing. Here in Mexico, when I share dance classes, I normally don't charge. When I do it in England, people are expecting, how much are we going to charge you? Are we going to pay you? Sorry. So it is a completely different point of view because of the level of development in each country, right? And I don't make a living out of dance, but I have many friends, both migrants, refugees, and locals, who do make a living out of that. It's extremely challenging. And it is a bit less challenging to do it in other monetarily richer countries. So yeah, I think we need to move beyond art as a hobby as well. There are many people who do not do art as hobbies, who that's what they do, that's what they have studied for, that's their profession. We need to value that, and we need to stop expecting artists to just giving it out for free. We as artists also need to stop giving it out for free. I myself have done that mistake in the UK, and a musician artist told me, like, great, you do it for free, but you are lowering the bar for us. Don't do that. I'm like, yes, I'm sorry, I'll do it. So I think there is also the need for awareness amongst the art consumers and the art community. Maybe also even that border, right, between consumers and artists needs to be blurred somehow. But I feel that as a key challenge. We need to value it more and pay for that within this capitalistic system, right? It would be lovely that, yeah, we can generate an alternative economy. But right now, that's not where we are. We need to be realistic and we need to pay for art projects, art productions. Thanks.
Thank you, Abid.
Well,
yeah.
thank you very much. Well, from my side, I would like to point out this what my friend and colleague Rewan mentioned here regarding like the employment plan. That the employment plan that it's a little bit pushy, which is not excessively pushy, that tries to get people work in labor market in certain jobs and distantly from their interest from their other professions. So what's needed in the country, you are as an immigrant, you are expected to do cleaning jobs, to do construction work, to do some shipbuildings what we have here, which is like very, very much practiced, and which is not as an artist you are not recognized as an artist by this employment let's say office or whatever. It's very hard to be, because they are looking for lucrative source of income and sustainable source of income, regardless of what services you are advancing to your society by giving them the overall image, by giving them people's experiences, by giving them ready experiences. Hey, you don't need to pass through all this. We are giving you experiences in forms of poetry, in forms of pictures, paintings, in forms of different genres of arts. So that's number one. And also very important to let artists work freely, and to also to involve more people, to be more inclusive in terms of starting from the very beginning when people arrive at, for example, the camps of refugees, which we didn't behold or witnessed any of the working or active organizations that came to probe what kind of people are they. Do you need equipment to do your art? Are you so was the focus was on learning language and seeing the labor life. I think at the camps there are great potentials, and the camps is like the childhood of the migrants or the newcomers. It's really like childhood, which is whatever happens there will influence the rest of your life. What the people that you meet, the teachings you receive in such places are going to determine your forthcoming life that started from your host country, like in my case, Finland. So I think like we need to be more inclusive and to work together. And also what Karen has mentioned, very like beautiful speech. And I think she is a regular person. We are all regular people, and we are regular people. When we are together, then we become special. That's it.
Thank you very much. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then maybe this is our final question for all of you. And it is this. It's actually in two parts. The first part is, do you have any concluding remarks? And the second part is, what are your hopes?
Can you repeat the first part? What was it?
The first part is, do you have any concluding remarks? Is there anything that you want to add, emphasize, etc.? And the second part is, what are your hopes? And we end on that note.
Yeah. I would like to just mention this. The refugeehood in global level is a reminder that we are all together on this planet. We are all on the same boat because the economical system that we have in the world makes it very easy to just like very big countries, economic big countries, to forget about it. And the refugees is like really showed lately that if you do something in somewhere, then it's like those people need help and they have to get help from somewhere. And this is like a reminder that we are all suffering from a, a bad politic or bad environmental crisis or industrial works or whatever, like it could be, that we are all humanity connected in this way. And my hope, my personal hope would be this, that we find out our identity as a human being without a state, without a culture, without just a nation, without any of these boundaries that we have made around ourselves and around our groups, that we are better than other people, that we are or we are less than the other people, both ways. That, to get to the point that we all share something together and it's life and it's just this moment. I mean, in 100 years, maybe 150 years, maybe none of us will be alive. I mean, if you just for a moment think about this, it is really striking. I mean that as a group of people from this century, how do you want to be remembered? And my hope is just this, that people get aware, being conscious about this. What's the outcome of their actions?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to conclude really quickly on the case of Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. I just want the people to have the right to hope, the right to dream, and after 73 years living in refugeehood without hoping for a better future, the meaning of life is felt like lost. So whenever I talk to people and whenever I go and visit the friends in the camps, it's always that hope is lost, and you can see it everywhere. For me, maybe art is a tool basically to give those people the right for them to dream and to hope for a better future, I would say.
Thank you, Anad. Thank you.
You go, Ahmad.
Okay, well, I was going to have a small poetry reading here from my book. It's called like Homeland. So if I can be the last, so it will be a little bit like ending of this beautiful session with poetry. So with my poem.
Yeah, of course, that sounds like an artistic ending. I like it. I think my concluding remarks is, well, I deeply appreciate you for sharing your experiences openly. And you have said it in different contexts, but it is not easy. So I honor that from all of you. Thank you for sharing and thank you for your openness. So yeah, my conclusion is I would like to help raise awareness around the migration crisis that is happening in Latin America. Mexico has become the third country worldwide with the highest number of asylum applications. You probably didn't know that. There is a war in Haiti. Lots of Haitian migrants are fleeing that country. Central America is in crisis. They are coming and trying to get to the gates of the US only to find closed doors, cartels in Mexico, and violence. It is a very dire, difficult situation what's happening here. And even in the midst of that, people keep on going. They resist. They are not only victims. there is civil society, there are local populations that are going against it. So I just wanted to share on that. If you ever see any organization that supports migration issues here, I can recommend some if in case you want to support some of the issues happening over here. I'll paste a link to my website where I share some of the work I'm doing. And yeah, and my hope is to keep connections like this growing, to move beyond the professional borders, no, or labeling borders. No, I'm an artist, I'm an academic, I'm this and that, but we are human beings, right? And I think it's my hope is to grow these connections to yeah, improve our world. Thanks.
Thank you, April.
We will definitely raise the awareness by art and improve our world and get things to work out when we realize that we are human beings, that we belong to the same planet. And so here is my poem from my book Homeland, translated into Finnish. It's written in English and it's called Refugee. Refugee. I came to you walking on the shrapnel of broken things. I came to you carrying detonation camps surrounded by oceans and freedom. I came to you with a huge sandstorm confined within my chest. I came to you like 1,000 souls trapped inside a bottle. From the line of the newspaper, I jumped to crumple your preconceptions. I came to you as good news or bad news, the blank page that you will one day have to read. I came to you from the furthest end of your thinking. I came to you infiltrating all walls of the fake media and misleading news. I broke the screen of your phone and stood like the jinn of the lamp to narrate my true story. I came as proof that the world is still small, despite the long line at custom and the surveillance cameras alongside the borderlines. I came to you in clouds of fumes, with heat waves from the south, on breezes from the Mediterranean or the Atlantic or the Persian Gulf. I came from a holy fence, from a thick wall collapsed between two lovers, because walls could be built in our minds, nowhere else. I came from a novel written by a bankrupt writer, from the electoral campaign or a rally to support the wars on Iraq or Iran. I came to you from a muddy boots of a soldier who has stood on the stained soil of Afghanistan. I came to you. I am the blood that oozes out of the vibrant wounds from my land that was purposely stabbed. I came to you from an old scar on a humanity that hasn't been cured. I came to you like a bell on the floor from the slit in your door, because I am the debt that no one wants to pay, from the flood that submerged my village and devoured my beautiful past. I come to you born again from under the rubble of my house. I rise giant, haunted, pale, like the moon of the autumn. I rise like an enchanted plant towards the light, the noise, the crowds. I rise like a rose in the desolate backyard of a deserted house on the edge of your town. I came to you like the good news or the bad news, the blank page that you will one day have to read or to fill. Thank you.
Thank you
Ahmed.
very much. Thank you very much. So thank you to our speakers, and thank you to everyone who attended. This is Refugee Camps in Focus. In this session, we'll be listening to Rewan Kakil, a visual artist who has been making artistic works about refugees in his home country in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Later, he became a refugee himself and continues exploring refugeehood from autobiographical level at an autobiographical level, as well as through sharing the story of other refugees in similar situations. And we've also been listening to Abreu Rios Rivera, a DPhil student in migration studies at the University of Oxford and a consultant on forced displacement and internal development in Kenya. Abreu is interested in the intersections of migration, gendered relations, power, and agency. And we have also been listening to Hanadi Samhan, a Palestinian refugee born and raised in Lebanon, currently in the final stages of completing a PhD at the Development Planning Unit at University College London. And we've also been hearing from Ahmad Zaidan, a Finnish Iraqi poet, journalist, and research assistant originally from Mosul, currently residing in Turku, Finland. Zaidan is the recipient of 2 literary prizes from the University of Mosul. And earlier, we heard from Jean Bertrand Camoso, a filmmaker and the executive director of Photo Film for Change, an arts-based organization focusing on media and performing arts in Kakuma refugee camp where he lives. We also heard from Saptiga Mohan, a visual artist, researcher, and photographer based in India, researching Sri Lankan refugees who have experienced forced migration. Saptiga's work works closely intertwining the visual narratives of Sri Lankan refugee communities living in various camps in Tamil Nadu. We also heard from Mudadi Saidi, a Congolese writer, art facilitator, and award-winning artist who has been living in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya for more than 10 of his 29 years. And this is Forced Migration in the Arts. The series aims to create space for conversations between people with experience of forced migration, artists, academics, activists, with an aim of trying to find out, what we can learn from one another and also how we can collaborate with each other. The next event in the series is going to take place on the last Thursday of October, which is going to be the 26th. I will send out details as soon as the program is ready. But for today, I say thank you and have a very good rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for organizing. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.